Camille was up before dawn, preparing a hearty breakfast for Stephen that included turkey bacon, soft scrambled eggs, corn grits, and wheat toast. Stephen, her husband of 15 years, was in their home office double-checking his flight information for a last-minute business trip to San Diego that would depart in a few hours. They had agreed early on in their marriage to postpone starting a family and instead focus solely on building their professional careers. Stephen was a commercial real estate agent and Camille was a financial analyst. They owned a bed and breakfast and a commercial building in downtown Atlanta that housed offices and condos, not to mention their 10-acre estate and a stunning summer home in Bora Bora. Their financial portfolio had them projecting $43 million a year annually in assets, and that didn't include the money in their Swiss bank account. Camille couldn't remember the actual balance in that account, but Stephen told her it was enough for their children's children to live off and retire on.
If you're listening to this story, tell me where you're from in the comments. And thank you for taking your time out. I appreciate you tuning in.
Speaking of children, at 36, Camille was now ready to have some babies, at least 2. A boy and a girl would be nice. She felt confident in her ability to be a wife, a businesswoman, and a mother all at the same time. The women in her family seemed to seamlessly juggle such roles. Following this line of reasoning, she was confident that having a baby right now wouldn't significantly complicate their lives. But Stephen had a different opinion. He was at the height of his career and wanted to focus on that. For the time being, they adopted Cupid, their male Australian Terrier. Cupid proved to be an affectionate and devoted companion. What Camille loved about him the most was that his short waterproof coat was so easy to maintain and he shed very little. Cupid arriving into her life was just a temporary fix to fill the void until Stephen changed his mind. But she still wanted a baby. Just one problem though. Getting pregnant would prove difficult for Camille. You're not going to be able to get pregnant in the traditional way. Those words said by her gynecologist several months ago still echoed in her mind. Having been diagnosed with endometriosis in her late teens, she was now suffering from polycystic ovary syndrome. The condition caused cysts to form on her ovaries, resulting in her ovulating irregularly. When diet and exercise didn't help, Camille decided to undergo a procedure where she would inject herself at home with a follicle-stimulating hormone to help stimulate her ovaries. She started giving herself the injections under the close monitoring of fertility specialist Dr. Gloria Mason. Camille stopped short of doing in vitro fertilization, though. She desired to get pregnant the conventional way, during ovulation. However, after a few weeks, her body began to feel the effects of the treatment, both physically and emotionally. On most days, she was bloated, exhausted, and cranky. The problem was that more times than not, the procedure proved unsuccessful, which is why some women chose to be quiet about it. Learning this unfortunate statistic, Camille couldn't find it in her heart to talk to Stephen about her diagnosis. She saw her infertility as something that she could fix by herself without having to unnecessarily involve him. Besides, he had enough on his plate with his new business venture, Quatroplex, a 600,000 square foot indoor theme park that he was opening with his new business partner, Gary Stein. The park would offer an edutainment environment and run all year round. It was geared towards appealing to the entire family, with various attractions catering to different age groups. To ensure the deal went through as planned, Stephen worked around the clock so that the project stayed on schedule. The deal gave him 60% ownership in Quatroplex, with Gary owning the remaining 40%. With so many investors searching for the next big opportunity, Camille was happy with her husband's final choice. Gary was experienced, qualified, and had available capital, which she knew was highly appealing to Stephen and should guarantee that the deal went smoothly. Camille piled food onto Stephen's plate quickly before everything started to get cold. Cupid stared at her intently, seemingly hoping for the golden opportunity to eat something off the floor. Camille craned her neck in Stephen's direction. She could hear the sound of his baritone voice as he worked from their home office. Stephen King speaking. Hey man, I wanted to catch you before you left. Hey Gary. So, how are things looking? Still working on it. I'll email the reports as soon as I get to my hotel room. My flight arrives around noon. Cool. Do you want to meet at our usual spot tomorrow? That works for me. How long can I expect you to stick around? As long as you need me. All right then. Later. Camille had waited for Stephen to finish his conversation before she entered the room. As he hung up the phone, he motioned for her to set the plate on the desk. Breakfast is served. I can't let my man leave here on an empty stomach. Looks delicious, he said, eyeing the food. Thanks, babe. You're welcome. He gave her a quick wink. She saw fine lines emerge across his forehead as he studied the documents on his desk, arranging them in order of importance. Camille quickly noticed in those short few seconds that Stephen Raymond King was still handsome as ever. His deep, rich chocolate features gave him the appearance of a tall Hershey bar. At 6 feet 4 inches, he had the stature of an NBA player. With toned arms to match his long, muscular legs, Stephen could have given Magic Johnson a run for his money back in his playing days. His long, slender fingers complemented his hands so well, and she especially loved how he kept his fingernails short and neatly manicured.
Come on now, eat before it gets cold, she demanded. Like an obedient child, he immediately obeyed her instructions, filling his mouth with a spoonful of grits and eggs. Did you sleep well? He asked her. Camille released a heavy sigh. Something on your mind this morning? He pressed her. Not really. It's just that I'm going to miss you. You're going to be away longer than normal. I realize that, but we are coming in on the home stretch. So I just have to power through. I'll be back before you know it, I promise. Okay, she said, poking her lips out as she walked over to him and plopped down in his lap. She felt his lips grazed her ear as she wrapped her arms around his neck. She let out a squeal as his touch vibrated throughout her body. Not only was he fine as Georgian wine, as her mother would often say, but Stephen was quite a charmer, which was truly an understatement. He didn't have to ask Camille twice when he proposed marriage to her the day after they graduated from Howard University. She was smitten and ready for that step. They had started dating their freshman year. Stephen was her opposite, but that's what made their relationship so perfect. It wasn't just because they were different as night and day, though. Their attraction to each other was almost magnetic. They fell instantly in love. Fortunately for Camille, Stephen wanted to marry her because he knew he'd found himself a good woman. She was fiercely loyal and supportive. The first few years of marriage proved rough for them because they had no money. They were broke, but he found creative ways to spoil her, such as leaving love notes in unexpected places. However, once they achieved financial wealth, Stephen lavished her with trips, cars, and fine jewelry. To him, it symbolized that they had made it. Over the years, Camille learned being spoiled came at a hefty price. She truly loved her lavish lifestyle, but there often came moments where she went through the what ifs. What if this, or what if that? She didn't see it as second-guessing herself, but more like reflecting back on the road she traveled. It took a lot of sweat and tears to get to this point in life with Stephen, and the return on investment was worth it. She had more than enough, and she didn't consider herself to be pretentious because she felt she had earned every bit of it. She worked just as hard as Stephen to help build their growing financial empire. She attended night school and took the required certifications in order to perfect her professional portfolio so that she could be better suited to help Stephen close those last-minute real estate deals. Camille, to put it simply, toiled silently behind the scenes with zeal. If he was the sun shining during the day, then she would be the moon, illuminating the night. She was a textbook introvert in every sense of the word. On the flip side, Stephen loved being the center of the universe. Camille described him as an intense extrovert. A self-proclaimed mama's boy, he had the privilege of growing up with a maid, a driver, and live-in nanny. Camille often listened to him reminisce about how his nanny had to feed him cow's milk from a bottle because his mother was too sick to nurse him in the days after his birth. Camille learned that Mabel King almost died in childbirth because she didn't make it to the hospital in time. Stephen was born at home in the middle of a snow blizzard. But as sure as there is a God in heaven, Mabel survived her ordeal, and now at 68, she was as tough as nails. Shortly before Camille married Stephen, Mabel made a point of telling Camille how she had found the strength to fight through her postpartum sickness because her only child needed her. What gave her the strength to not give up? Her belief that prayer changes things. Camille was aware that Mabel was hesitant about marrying off her son. His mother was skeptical that Camille could give her sweet and perfect son the happiness he deserved. Mabel was concerned and suggested that the couple wait at least 5 years before marrying. Camille should have ran for the hills when this unexpected intervention occurred, but she was young and deeply in love with a man who had become her entire world. The moment she became the other Mrs. King, she did things to prove herself worthy of being Stephen's wife, oftentimes compromising her own wants and needs. Camille was well aware that there were plenty of women in Atlanta who would compete with one another to steal her spot. On one occasion, she overheard a discussion at a dinner party concerning her marriage to Stephen. The two unsuspecting women were in the ladies' room and did not realize that Camille was in the bathroom stall when they started discussing what they'd do to win Stephen's heart right under her nose. She flushed the commode and walked out of the stall right into the middle of their circle. Camille rolled her neck in their direction. Washing her hands, she spoke matter-of-factly to them. "Both of you want to be in my place so bad. Well, you can't have my harvest because you haven't walked a day in my shoes. And I'm not talking about these $500 stilettos I'm wearing tonight. I'm referring to those tattered, worn-out shoes I have at home in the back of the closet. You might think you have the upper hand, but I will always bet on myself." The look on their faces spoke volumes as they rushed out of the restroom without saying another word. Fixing her shoulder-length hair in the mirror, Camille meant every word she said to those envious hens. She wasn't willing to hand her marriage over to any woman who thought she could do a better job or just wanted to reap the rewards of their hard work. Stephen chose her to be his wife, and that was the end of the matter. Camille left that dinner party early and had her driver take her home to their gated mansion in Atlanta's Buckhead community. After 15 years of hard work and putting up with Mabel King, she earned those bragging rights. Thank you for listening until the end. If this story resonated with you, leave me a comment. Tell me what you liked and what you didn't like. I want to hear how it touched you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so you never miss one of my excerpts from As Long as I Hope in the Talk to God series.